Hi, everybody, again. I'm Sterling. You're learning American English with me. This is part two, where I'm talking about how to talk about subjunctive kind of things in English. So, listen for the subjunctive kind of things that I talked about in part one. This is about me. When I was young, there were a lot of things to think about. I admired both of my parents a lot, and I was a big fan of my dad. In spite of a few negative personality issues that he had, he was my hero. And I thought of my father as smarter, more clever, perhaps as the most important man in the world. I actually thought that the world would not do so well without my dad. I really did. I admired him for his unusual skills and interests, which really put him in a different category from many people who I only thought of as average. And I thought that other kids had boring families. I felt like other kids' parents were boring and too conventional because we did weird stuff, and I liked that. So, is identity something you're born with, or is identity something that's developed? Or is identity the spiritual side? Well, personality reflects your earthly experience and education and your spiritual identity. How is identity related to personality? Did we choose our parents and we've simply forgotten that experience? Or does birth just randomly happen with no link to any pre existing identity? Where were we before what we know as birth? Have you ever asked yourself these questions? I know that I did, and maybe sometimes I still do. I remember being maybe 4 or 5 years old and waking up early one Sunday morning when the rest of the family was still sleeping. And I went out onto the back steps behind the house, and I was thinking there, and I was thinking things like, why am I here? I remember thinking, well, I can remember back maybe 2 or 3 years, no more than that. So what was I doing before that? And why can't I remember? Did I just start from zero? And I thought to myself at that time, where would I be if I were not there at that moment? And what brought me to that place and point? Who were my parents? And why were they different people than the parents of the other kids I knew? So even now, at this present point in time, I still ask myself, where could I have been if I were not there at that moment thinking those things? Why was I there at that moment thinking those things? Who were my parents? Why was I their child and not the child of some other set of parents? Did they choose me? I was pretty sure that they didn't choose me, but yet I had this feeling that they preferred me over other children. Otherwise, why did they feed me? Give me a nice place to live. Why were they teaching me things? Why weren't they inviting other children into our house to live too? Somehow I knew that all they really could decide was maybe to have children, and that was all they could do. And then, of course, having a child wasn't a sure thing either, but I was having a hard time figuring out what role my parents played in bringing me into the world, but I was really sure that I was there. That's all I knew. and and so I also remember thinking and wondering if they could have chosen their children ahead of time, would they have chosen me? Most of the time I thought the answer would be yes, but I still wondered why. And it's interesting that I did that wondering telepathically. I didn't have a big developed vocabulary at that time. I didn't need words to wonder things like this. The only reason we need words is to try to transfer thoughts like this to another human being. And I remember thinking kind of advanced things like this being only like 4 or 5 years old. Anyway, my dad instilled in all of us boys, I had 4 brothers, no sisters, a desire to go do great things. And he instilled that in me. And whether or not any of the things I actually did were great, that's not important. But rather, I just wanted to do great things because I wanted to be the way that I was sure that my dad was when I was younger. And I know my older brothers did too, to some extent, and maybe my younger brothers less. And that's because I think my dad's attitude towards his children was changing by the time his final 2 sons were born. Am I really going down a consistent path of thinking here? That doesn't matter. We're here to practice strange, conditional, and subjunctive verb tenses, not to make a real point. We're just talking about imaginary things, but these are real imaginary things. But let's say if there was some motivation to make a real point, I might keep asking myself, what if I had been somebody else's child? Would I still be who I am today? Would my identity be the same or just my personality would be different? I mean, what if my identity is mine permanently, but my personality is what develops on account of the environment that I'm raised in? What if my identity is mine, but I had a different personality because of being raised by different parents? Well, on the surface, that's impossible. But we could play devil's advocate here. It could be possible that I could be someone else other than who I am now if I had, one, been raised by different parents, two, made a different set of decisions than I did. Decisions that could have been made at virtually any point in my life experience. Those conditions would result in a universe parallel to this one that I'm in now, with maybe just slightly different conditions. Or who knows, maybe there could be a huge difference in this alternative universe. Because let's say, what would the world have been like, or what could it have been like if I had become some really significant person in society? The President of the United States, rather than just Joe Average, because of some decision that I had made for myself earlier in life. A lot of people maintain that these parallel universes indeed exist and that our It's only our belief systems that prevent us from experiencing more than one set of possibilities at a time. Some philosophical theorists believe that the substance of what we experience is completely a function of the state of our consciousness. It's 100% mental. It's like there actually is no materiality. Materiality is a product of mentality. And there are quite a number of videos on that subject to be found in various spiritual and paranormal channels on YouTube. It's quite interesting. Some talk about experiences in which people report to have found themselves inexplicably in some alternative reality, which usually, according to the stories, results in a return to normalcy, but of course it would have to in order for them to be here to tell the story. So, the question I pose about subjunctive moods in language is this: if parallel universes, parallel universes do indeed exist, does such a thing as an impossible situation even exist? If anything is possible, all possibilities already exist. They already are manifest in some alternative form of consciousness. Therefore, this means that it should be possible to make any situation into reality or to change what seems to be our environment by learning to consciously control our own mental perceptions. And that would render subjunctive grammar completely without a purpose. So, what do you think? That's the end of my video. If you like my stuff, please subscribe to my channel. See you all in the next video.